All right, let's get it going. Sorry about the little bit of a weird start. I've been out of it for a bit, and we're gonna get my gorgeous face on here in just a second. Let's go. Yeah, there I am. Handsome bastard. All right, let's go ahead and pull up that for now. Again, I apologize. I'm a little disjointed today, and I probably sound like crap on your end. And we need to get Twitch rolling. I haven't gotten Twitch rolling yet. So let's start Twitch. Let's start that. Let's go to live chat. Let's open this up a bit more. There we go. So everything should be rolling. I apologize for how rough I sound. For those that don't know, I just got back from Gen Con. I actually got back super late Sunday night, early Monday morning. I think it was almost midnight by the time I got in and in bed. So I'm very hoarse because I was running events. I'm a Games Workshop employee, and I was running Kill Team. We ran Seal Box, and that's basically you get a built-in primed. It's not a full kill team, and it's not a full kill team. It's basically what comes in a box. So like if you get Space Marines, you're probably getting 5 because there's 10 in the box and they cut it in half. But they're built, they're primed, and then you sit at a table with an opponent, and then I walk you through the whole game. Obviously, it's a 2 hour session, so I'm not giving you every single rule out there, but it's a very great way to get an introductory how to play as well as get your start on your kill team. So it's pretty neat. I like it. I like it a lot. I like running it, but unfortunately, I spent about 2 hours, not 2 hours, about 12 hours. There we go. I spent about 12 hours talking over a whole convention hall just so I could teach people how to play while at the same time running a kill team tournament. Yeah, it's just being hoarse. Thankfully, I'm not sick, Dan. Good to see you, buddy. But yeah, thankfully, I'm not sick. I'm just hoarse from not having a voice after basically yelling all weekend. So, and also, Dan, while you're here, I needed to message you anyway. I haven't gotten my box with your shirt in it yet. I don't know when it's coming in because I don't know if they're shipping UPS and everything going on with the strike. So I don't know exactly what we're looking at, but I will keep you updated as things come in and I get updated. So today we're going to talk about our round three Custodes preview. Before we dig into it, I am going to talk about my list. We're not going to run through it itemized, but I'm going to pull it up in my hand and kind of walk you through what I've got and why I've got it. And then we'll talk about the mission and everything else. So, oh boy, let me pull it up. YouTube is not what I need. I had to tell my kids, like, don't piss me off because it's exhausting just to talk right now. So raising my voice is even worse. And they were like, okay, Dad. All right. League list. So for those that don't remember, obviously I'm running Drukari and I'm doing the real space raid because that's the only thing available right now. Oh, I have this whole phone mount right here. I actually put it over here so that I could do this easily. All right. So we've got the handsome Archon. He's got the Husk Blade and the Splinter Pistol. He does have Labyrinthine Cunning, which is the one that gives him the extra. Let's just pull it up. My brain is not ready for this today. What did we need? We need this. Sorry. Boop, 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 boop. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Get you that Thomas the Tank Engine music going. Bam. Bam. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and flip over to full screen. There we go. And then we'll zoom you in so you can see it better. All right, so he's got Labyrinthine Cunning. I don't even remember what it does now, just because I'm tired. Labyrinthine Cunning. Oh, anytime you spend CP on a 4-up, you get one back. If you use it for Alliance of Agony, it's automatic. So, and it's each time you select the bearer's unit as a target of a stratagem. But we all know what I'm talking about. I've got it up in front of me. Now, he's got that. Is pretty good. I do have Drazar. He's my favorite. I love him so much. Again, I know a lot of people are like, Drazar's poopy, Incubi are poopy. And I guess in the context of ninth, yes, they're not good. But in the context of Melee and 10th edition, I have had pretty good success with Drazar and friends. You just have to temper your expectations and send them at the right targets. Will Drazar and company one shot a Redemptor? Probably not anymore. But will they do a whole lot of damage to maybe like a low toughness vehicle like an orc buggy or an infantry unit? Absolutely. So if you're on Twitch, just a heads up, we got an ad coming. And while we're talking about ads, if you like the Army Painter speed paints, which I have found to be phenomenal, I do use them. There is an affiliate link to get the starter box set in the description of the video. Click the link. If you buy it, it won't cost you any extra money, and I do get a little bit of a commission on it. So, uh, just a big shout out to Army Painter. Speed paints are a great product. I have had really good success with them, and I enjoy using them. And now that you've heard my ad, you now get to see Twitch's ad. Hell yeah! I do have a homunculus. He's got the Art of Pain. I don't. Gosh, in the command phase, if he's on the battlefield, I gain one pain token. And then I do have Lilith. And again, I think Lilith is very good. I think she's better than the regular succubus, which I actually just got my first regular succubus. I've been using Lilith this whole time. And I went and bought a regular one finally, and I've got it built. It's going to get primed today. And I may start painting it on stream. We'll see. But I do like Lilith. The witches, I don't give two shits about. Like, they are just not my favorite right now. They're in kind of an odd spot. But they're a 10 wound soak with a 4-up invuln in melee for Lilith. She's awesome. She's incredible and she makes me happy. There's nothing about her that makes me sad. I have yet to feel like I have not gotten my points out of her. I do have the Kabalite Warriors, two of those. I am splitting them in half. The way I typically play them is I put the heavy weapons team into the Venoms and then the Rifle Boys. Malediction sounds like a bad pun. Hey, what's up, Glenn? Good seeing you, buddy. It does sound like a bad pun. I sound like a bad pun right now. So, like I said, I typically put the heavy weapons teams in the Venoms, the splinter rifles or the splinter cannons, the blasters, the dark lance, and the shredder go in the Venom, and then the rifles go on the table. And I usually put my Archon in a squad with the rifles, although I probably should start putting him with the heavy weapons just to make them more efficient when I shoot them. But I've got no complaints. He's been very good. They've been pretty good. And really, the reason I put them the way I do is so that the Archon's always on the table. But I think we might change it up this one because I'm gonna want those wound rerolls going into Custodes when I power them up, get them all juiced. I do have one unit of 5 racks. Obviously, I've got the Ossifector, the Hex Rifle, and the Liquefier. I think racks are very good. This list has not a lot of them because I was trying some other things out. I think if I were going to do it again, I'd probably bring just 2x10 or 1x10 and 2x5 racks, especially because I can take a sniper rifle for every 5. And man, that sniper rifle will get people to kind of rethink their life decisions on where they set things down. So it's definitely worth having on the table. And again, the witches, like I said, not a fan, but it do be what it is. I do have a raider. I've said before, I think they're a little bit overpointed, but that's where Drazar and company go. I'd like to see the Raiders drop maybe 15, 20 points. I think that puts them in a very good spot. Hey, hell yeah, dude. What what class you in? Definitely got to get paperwork done. But yeah, that sounds good, man. I appreciate you popping in. For anybody listening, Spicy Miso Gaming, he does Twitch streaming also. Check him out. Does video games and stuff. Met him at Gen Con. He was one of the Kill Team players that played at my event. Super nice dude. Also a veteran, so he gets points there from me anyway. We do have 2x5 Hellions. I like the Hellions. I feel like you run them one of two ways. You either run them in 2 units of 5 to make them more of a utility unit, or you run them in one big unit to make them more of a killy unit. I've got 2x5. I've been able to get a lot of utility out of them for scoring secondaries, especially because I can advance them and they are still eligible to shoot. So it becomes a pretty interesting interaction there. Like I said, I've got the Incubi. I do have a Ravager. It has 3 Dark Lances. The Ravager is okay. I don't have any complaints about it. I think it shores up, you know, the range issues that I would have without it. Like the Dark Lances having very good range helps me out a ton. But I will say they don't last long, right? They're not exceptionally durable. And then I have 2 units of Scourges. I personally put the heat guns on them, heat lance, whatever you want to call it. I know a lot of you are big fans of the Dark Lance, and I don't hate the Dark Lance, right? I like the Dark Lance. I think it's very good. I just like the heat guns personally because they're strength 14. The Dark Lance will give you more consistent damage output and better range, but I like the strength 14 of the heat lance personally based on the way the rest of my list is constructed. And as you guys watch my videos, one of the things you will find is very rarely will I ever tell you you're wrong for liking something. Right? Like, very rarely am I going to argue with you and be like, well, the heat gun is superior or this is superior. Because it's very subjective in a lot of situations, and I recognize that. What works for me may not work for you. And I'm not sitting here telling you what the most meta things to play are. There's plenty of channels that will do that. You know, the Art of Wars and the channels like that that will tell you what the most efficient armies are or what the most broken combos are. I'm simply trying to help you understand how we can use units that we already have. I have Hellions. I like Hellions. How can I use my Hellions effectively? I have Talos, and we all know Talos are good, but that's a bad example. But like that's my goal. My goal isn't to tell you this is busted. You should play this all the time. Everything else is trash. My goal is to tell you, hey, what models and units do you have? Can we find any utility for them? Can we use them in a way that gets you to put the models that you like on the table and still help you win some games? That has always been my angle. That has always been my approach. And that is why, generally speaking, when I go to tournaments, I tend to run some weird stuff because, like, I just want to play what I want to play. If I win, awesome. I know that I'm good enough at the game that I can play some jank and still have it do well. So it's like I just want to share that experience with you so that you can play the things that you like. So sorry for that little interlude. Outside of the 2 units of Scourges, I also have a Talos. I had somebody Rule of cool. Yeah. Uh, I'd say for me, it's about, you know, it's not 100% rule of cool for me. Like, if I have 2 units that I like equally and one's just better, obviously, right? I'll take the better one. But I mean, and like, there's certain units that I'm not necessarily a fan of that I'll just include in my lists because they're too good not to. As an orc player, also, I recognize that the beast boss on Squigosaur is just too good to not bring, so I'm going to bring it. but it is not my favorite orc model. I'm not a huge squig fan, although I have worked on mine to get him looking in a way that I just makes me enjoy him more. He is, orange and yellow with tiger stripes, and I've got to get a little cowboy hat on him and stuff. But so it's just always my approach though is like absolutely. What do I like? How can I play it? You know, if I don't like it visually, I'm probably not going to play it unless it's just so good that I cannot not have it. So my Talos has got gauntlets, haywire blasters, liquefier guns, and there's a unit of two of them. And so the reason I set it up that way, and again, I had somebody ask me about that, and they were like, "Well, I like this," and you're not wrong for liking it, right? Like that is 100% okay. I have it set up this way because I like the volume that Haywire gives me when I'm shooting at vehicles. It doesn't do me anything into monsters, but at that point, I'm just fishing for sixes. It doesn't do a lot into infantry. At that point, I'm just fishing for sixes because they're twin linked. But if I've with so many vehicles, right? Even our Custodes players are running the big Caladius tanks or whatever. I don't know what Kyle's running. We'll pull up Kyle in a minute. That's who I'm playing this Friday. But a lot of them are running tanks and dreadnoughts, and it's one of those where if I can bypass the armor save and just give them a 50-50 die roll for each damage, and it's giving me four saves, right? Or four shots instead of just one or two shots. It's four because I have two of them. It's just one of those where I like the interaction a little better with the Haywire. Um, I'm not, because to me, they're a melee first unit anyway. The shooting is secondary, so I'm not losing sleep over it if the shooting's not super efficient or if the shooting doesn't do a lot of damage. Because really, what I want to try to do with them, the way I play them, is I try to get them stuck in. And the guy in the comment section, I can't remember what his name was, but he was like, "Well, I like the heat lances because I like to advance and still be able to shoot and keep things moving." Dark Lance compared to Twin Haywire from Talos against Knights. Yeah, and I could see that, and I'm not like I just said, like I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. My experience with the Haywire has been very good, but I also empower them nonstop. Like that's one of the units that's just always getting empowered. And when I'm rerolling hits and I'm rerolling wounds, even if I only get three through, that's just nine mortal wounds. So the Dark Lances will have a higher damage ceiling, but the lower volume means that your dice need to be more efficient. So it's just a different approach to the game, like we just said. And I have eight Heat Lances to be able to focus down on a single thing as well, plus the three Dark Lances from my Ravager, plus the Dark Lances that are in my infantry squads. So it's just one of those where 100% get why you would do it that way, Michael, over on YouTube. Just a little bit different approach and a little bit different concept for me. That's all it is. Like I said, I'm never going to tell somebody what you're doing is wrong. I definitely respect, the fact that you're playing a different game than I am. Like your local players might have different stuff than my local players do. And even going to GTs and stuff, I've run into some lists that aren't just standard cookie cutter net lists. So, but that's the list. We talked about Space Wolves. And we talked about how that kid did exactly what I thought he was going to do. Super nice guy. He really was. Super, super nice human. But he did exactly what I thought he was going to do. And it was kind of funny. And we talked about it afterward. So, yep. And that's it. Is there's, I don't think between the Heat Lances, the Dark Lances, and the Haywire, I don't think any one of those are a bad option. And that's really what it boils down to, Michael. You're 100% right. Is that none of them are bad. It's just what is your personal preference and what is it you're running into? I have a very heavy chaos and demon meta, like locally. Um, and we have a lot of Tyranids. So like that's why I tend to run a lot more Heat Lances. Whereas if you don't run into that, you might have better luck with the Dark Lances. Two Talus and one Reaver, or two Reavers and Solitaire or Venom, Drazar, and Incubi. Um, I don't know if that's a question or if you're just saying those are the things you like. But in my list right now, I'm actually not running any clowns at all. Not because I don't like them, just because I am trying to focus on how I can interact 100% with Drukari and maximize my Drukari units. I'm not running any Reavers in this list. I did in my initial list when I think it was like the first tournament I did after the index dropped. And I like the Reavers. I like the mobility they give me. But I actually have two 5-man of Hellions to kind of fill that same role. They don't do the mortals when you fly over them, but having assault weapons lets me advance them and interact with the game doing the quote unquote action based stuff. And they still have 2 damage attacks, so like they can still kill Marines, which is helpful. And then I do definitely have Drazar and Incubi, so Carl Malone out there, if you that is your real name. Uh, I don't know if that was a question or a suggestion, so I was just kind of responding to that. While we're kind of chatting here, I'm gonna pull up Kyle's list. I'm gonna bring it over here so we're not showing you guys all my spicy personal info. Be like, God, that one time, some weird stuff pops up on my Twitch suggestions because I don't use Twitch a lot, so it doesn't know what to suggest to me. So I get all kinds of weird stuff. And man, you guys were quick, super quick to point it out. So I definitely have to be a lot more careful. Let me find the league here. League pairings. Where am I? Do 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 do. Kyle Birch. Let's pull him back over here. All right, and we can close this out. Okay. Uh, so if those are your options and you have a GT, I don't know where you're from, but like, what does your local meta look like? Hot tub streams on Twitch. Only if it's you, buddy. Jimmy, I will watch you shower all day long, my friend. uh, no, and there's nothing wrong with the souping, buddy. It's one of those where, like I said, I'm not opposed to it. I just want to see how well I can do without doing it first, and then go from there. But as far as your GT goes, it really is going to depend on the rest of your list because I love Drazar and I love Incubi, but if you're gonna go to this GT and you know you're gonna hit knights and knights and knights and knights, there's no point in running Drazar. He's not effective against T10 and above. And the Incubi with Drazar are not effective against T8 and above for the most part. So it really depends on what you think your matchups are going to be, like the most prevalent armies. I mean, yeah, if that's what you want to do, that's not how I play, and we both know that, buddy. And I personally, and we were just talking about that, Jimmy, is that I actually like the Heat Lances a little bit better, but I can't get those on the infantry squads. But the Dark Lances are definitely amazing, and you can put them in a lot of places. But no, going back to your question there, Carl Malone, the mailman, let's go, little old school NBA reference. Um, it really is going to depend on what the rest of your list looks like. If you're doing a lot of Cabalites and Venoms, and you don't have any kind of melee presence, then I would bring some sort of melee presence. If you do have a solid melee presence already, I would probably lean into the like the Solitaire and the Venom. Like I said, the Reavers are good. You can put the Heat Lances on them. They're very mobile. I've already published missions today. All right. I'll check it out in just a minute. Let me run through before we get into that. Remind me in a few minutes. I'm going to run through Kyle's list. We're going to talk about how I'm going to approach it. And then we'll see if we can kind of check out what your matchups might be. I'll see if I can pull it up and we'll see what we can look at. Hey, man, my goal is best in faction. Anytime I do a multiple day event, that's my goal, best in faction. So, and then Michael said, I've been running 1,000 point games and I'm struggling with my incubi and witches due to firing Overwatch. Is there anything I can do about it? So that's the main thing, and it also is going to be very dependent on your matchups. So Michael, I don't know who you're playing, but if I know that Overwatch is just going to be a thing, like some armies can spam it, for example, right? Like you can use the captain's ability to fire Overwatch an additional time, stuff like that. I will usually just slap the Archon's ability on it. I don't know what your terrain layouts look like for your 1,000 point games, but that's also going to affect a lot. And then the third thing is you're going to have to bring transports. So if you've got a 5-man unit of Incubi with Drazar, put them in a Venom. Like just put them in a Venom. And I know that's not the best answer because once they get out and they move up, they can just get shot at with Overwatch. But it's one of those where without knowing what your matchups are, it's really hard because if you are playing somebody that doesn't have access to fall back and shoot, then I would probably just leave them in the transport, then charge the transport in, unless it's a very melee unit you're charging into, right? But like, let's say you're charging into just like some intercessors that don't have access to fall back and shoot, right? Charge the intercessors with the full transport. They're probably not killing your Venom in the swing back. And then they have to make the decision on if they want to fall back in order for that unit to interact. Sure, they can shoot it, but it's -1 to be targeted. And again, it's just one of those where there's not really a perfect answer. Overwatch just kind of sucks ass for our infantry, and that's the way it is. And you really have to do your best in making sure you're positioning your units. Sacrifice that inch charge, right? Like if being in a terrain feature means you're going to roll an 8-inch charge, but moving out of the terrain feature to make it an easier charge means you're going to get shot at with Overwatch. Sacrifice that easy charge in order to hide. And that's really it. Like, and then it's not perfect, but you can still use your transports, especially in the charge phase, to kind of screw with Overwatches. So like if you've got a Venom and a unit of Incubi, yep. And so in a 1,000 point game, and again, without knowing your matchups in a 1,000 point game, I'd probably take the Cabalites. Their damage output is going to be so much better. Um, and again, it's still matchup specific. But I love Lilith. But if I were playing a 1,000 point game, I either take Lilith or I take Drazar. I don't think I take both. I think I just take extra Cabalites and maybe like a Venom for them or a Raider for them. Probably a Venom because I like being able to break my units up and bounce them all over. It gives me a lot more footprints all over the table. So like if you've got 10 witches and you don't have a character in them, right? You're not already taking Lilith, then yeah, I'd probably just swap them for Cabalites. If you are taking Lilith, I'd probably drop both and then bring Cabalites and a Venom. Like I said, at 1,000 points, because of the state of melee and because witches just generally suck right now, they're just a wound soak for Lilith. Like, I think you just take the Cabalites and the Venom or Cabalites and a Raider and just get you some tankier units on the board, and that will help you. Like Raiders are overpointed, don't get me wrong, but having one of the highest toughness units in our index on the table in a 1,000 point game is going to help you. And honestly, if you have a Ravager, I'd almost consider bringing the Ravager if you can fit that and the Cabalites. It can't carry them, but having the ability to throw 3 Dark Lance shots, as Jimmy said earlier, as many Dark Lances as possible, being able to bring 3 extra Dark Lance shots on like a T9 platform is going to feel a lot better than just more infantry that's going to get dicked off the table by bolt guns and Overwatch and flamers. So I hope that helps you out, Michael. Let's zoom this in a little bit. All right. So Gold Boys, 1,975 points, Kyle Birch. And so for everybody out there, I know Kyle. I've known Kyle for a few years now. He is a great human being. I love playing games with him. He's a lot of fun. I've gotten to see him get a lot better as a player since I've known him. And he and I are just really good friends anyway. So this is going to be a fun game. We're going to play it on Friday. Shield captain on Dawn Eagle jet bike, 170 points. So the Dawn Eagle jet bikes, he's the only person I've ever seen play one. So we're going to look and see what it does. Uh, Dawn Eagle jet bike. So it moves 12. It's T6. So, man, T6 is like T4, 5, 6, and 7 are the perfect target for Incubi. So if I can get Incubi into the captain and his little gang of hoodlums, that's where they're going. Because they only have, he's got 7 wounds, 4 up invuln, 2 up save. So I'm just pushing him to his invuln with the Incubi. So like I'm already thinking, okay, where am I sending my units? His salvo launcher is 24 inches. It's a single shot at strength 9, neg 2, 3 damage. And then he's got a hurricane bolter that's 18 inches, rapid fire 3, and twin link, but it's strength 4, no rend. So like, not crazy, but not bad. Let's see. When he's leading a unit, when it consolidates, it can move up to 6 inches instead of 3. So that's actually really good. Like a 6-inch consolidate in 10th edition, in my opinion, is better than a 6-inch consolidate in 9th edition. Because if you can't tag an enemy unit, you can now tag an objective. So if you pick your positioning and your charges right, if you wipe what you charge, if you're within 6 of an objective but not within 6 of an enemy unit, you can consolidate onto that objective. Like that's a very clutch ability. At the end of the fight phase, blah blah blah. Once per battle, if that model's unit is within engagement range at the end of the fight phase, it can fall back as if it were your movement phase. Or if it is not within engagement range, it can make a normal move. That's also really good. But that's only while it's leading a unit, I believe. Yes. And then strategic mastery, he just gets to spam whatever strat he wants to for free. And that is what it is. Not that I'm salty about it. It just is what it is, man. It wouldn't be so bad if the strats were a little bit more balanced. That some armies can just like spam strats and some armies can't. Like the Custodes fight first on an objective one is pretty rough to have to deal with. But I've just kind of figured out that you just shoot them off the objective. That's fine. It's just one of those, as a person who generally plays in the fight phase, I'm now being relegated to not interacting with you in the phase that I want to interact with you in, and that's all that means. And then he gets to go into the Praetors, which are just the bike units. He does have the Veiled Blade. I don't know what that does. Let's check it out. I don't know what any of their stuff is off the top of my head. 25 points. Add 2 attacks to the attack characteristic of its melee weapons, and then once per battle, you can triple the OC of the unit. So that's pretty solid, especially with that 6-inch. It's cute, man. 6-inch consolidate, and then at the start of any command phase, triple your OC. That's actually really good because you can 6-inch consolidate onto an objective, triple your OC for your unit, and then deny primaries without even having to take lives. Right, winning the hearts and minds. That's what we do. Trajan's pretty wild. I honestly just didn't interact with him. I just avoided him the whole game, and it worked. Like I didn't win my games, but they were both close and competitive. And basically was just like, all right, Trajan, you get to just be where you are. I don't care. Because once per battle at the start of the fight phase, you can pick one of these abilities. You can give him 12 attacks, you can give him a 2-up invuln, or you can give him fight first. And then he ignores any and or all modifiers to characteristics of models in that unit and any roll or tests. So like if Trajan's in a unit, -1 to wound does not affect them for my Rax or my Talos. If Trajan's in a unit, lightning fast reactions does not affect them. Uh, if my damage reduction modifies the damage value on Trajan's character sheet or their character sheet, they get to ignore my damage reduction. It's one of those where he's just kind of silly, man. And generally speaking, my plan has just been to avoid him. I just walk away from him. And like I said, first game I lost by 6 or 7. Second game I lost by like 15. And both games I had multiple turns playing tactical where I just drew objectives that couldn't be scored. Like round one, I drew one that it's basically impossible to score it round one unless you play one or two specific armies, and it didn't let you reshuffle it because a couple of them will tell you if you get it round one, you just shuffle it back in. So I had some objectives that just couldn't be scored, and therein lies the issue I have with tactical is that for competitive play, it's too inconsistent. For match or yeah, for competitive play, I love playing tactical objectives. They're a lot of fun, but I personally would rather play fixed because then I always know where my points are coming from and I can always game plan a lot better, right? Like yes, I can count cards and yes, I can understand what my percentages of drawing certain things are, but I also don't have to count cards if I just pick two secondaries and play them and I just focus on them. So again, I'm not saying one's better than the other. It's just from my personal preference and experience, I prefer fixed because I find it to be something that the way my brain works, I can easily rely on it better rather than having to plan for what I could or couldn't score with cards. Battle line, he's got 2 units of custodian guard. I think those are just the regular dudes. Again, I don't know what anything's called in this army. I have no clue. Did I just pull up? Yeah, I thought I pulled up the combat patrol. Yeah, they're just the dudes. What do they have? Are they the spears? So they get a spear, or they get the Misericordia, or they get the Sentinel Blade. And then their guns. Add on Twitch. There we go. Ranged weapons. Then they get the guns, Guardian Spear, or the Blade. So strength 4, -1, 2 damage. So one's a pistol and the other's not. That's the big difference. Okay. So relatively short range, so I can at least outrange him, right? Like my dark lances, I don't have a ton, but if I've got 5 or 6 dark lance shots, I can just focus them on him before he even gets in range, especially if he does what I think he's gonna do. Because Custodes, I've kind of seen their gimmick, and now that I've seen it, I'm not saying I can beat it every time because the army's just a little overtuned, but I can at least plan around it better. Alaris Custodians, those are the Terminators. I already know that. And that ballistic grenade launcher is kind of dumb, right? Especially into like a T3 army. So I do need to be aware of that, because that thing just throws so many dice. Let me see. Alaris, so I'll tell you what it is. The ballistic grenade launcher does a d6 shots with blast at strength 4, -1/1 damage. So 2 of them does 2d6. Into my witches, for example, it's going to be 2d6 plus 2 shots per gun. So it's going to be 2d6 plus 4, which means on average, he's throwing 11 to 12 dice. So it's one of those like One of the guys I played, he had like 3 or 4 of them in a unit, and it was just throwing so many dice that I just couldn't do anything about it. And then the Sagittarum custodians, I don't know what those are at all. Again, I don't know the name of any of this stuff. It's awesome. The picture in the app is literally just like artwork instead of the model. Melee weapons, they just have a Misericordia. Are they shooty? Yeah, they're shooty. Okay. So they basically have a heavy bolter. 3 shots, strength 5, neg 1, 2 damage, 36-inch range. I can get behind that. Like, that's pretty solid. And the Misericordia is not terrible. It's 4 attacks at strength 5, neg 2, 1 damage. So these are actually kind of neat. And I haven't seen these on the table, so it's going to be kind of cool to see them. We do have the Telemundo Heavy Dreadnought. He's got armored feet. He's got the Accelerator Calverin. So what's cool about the Telemon is I want to say it doesn't really have like crazy guns. I could be wrong. Like the Storm Cannon's a lot of dice and it's good. Oh, with the Sagittarum guys, our Forge World, that makes sense why I don't see him a lot. Or do you mean the Telemon, Sam? Also, hi, Sam. Been a bit. Hope to see you Friday, buddy. So what has he got? He's got the Accelerator, the Bolt Launcher, the Castus, and the Plasma. So many dice. So the Calverin's 4 shots at strength 9, neg 1, 3 damage. Um, the Spiculous Bolt Launcher is a D6 plus 3 shots, so it's just a lot of volume. And then the Twin Plasma Projector is D3 shots, strength 7, neg 2, 1 damage. But it's a flamer. The Heavy Bolter Duders? Alright, cool. Yeah, and that makes sense why I haven't seen them yet then. Because not a lot of people probably have them. And to be honest, Kyle's probably like mad labbed them out of something. Like, gotcha. That is good to know, and I'll keep a watch out for that. Yeah, and heavy bolters are probably going to feel a little rougher into Marines than they are elves, just because having 2 wounds and instantly dying to a gun is not the same as having 1 wound and instantly dying to the same gun, right? Like, haha, your 2 damage is useless. So, so he's got a shooty Telemon. He's got 2 shooty Telemon. Interesting. I like it. I like it a lot that he's got some shooty Telemon. And then the feet are just strength 7, 0 AP. And then we'll go to the Praetors. Those are just the bikes. And they're T6 4 wounds. So yeah, I think the bikes are really where I want to try to get Drazar. Like I want to try to get him and his friends. The bikes, Sam. Yeah, I think the bikes, I think people are sleeping on them because they got a little bit nerfed from last edition, but I can't imagine they're bad. But my plan right now is to take the bikes and try to send Drazar and Incubi into them because it's going to be a lot of dice and it's going to be wounding them on 4s for the boys and then 2s for Drazar because he gets +1 to wound and he gives it to the Incubi. So being able to do that and throw about 32 damage dice into him. The Dreadnoughts. Yep, yep. Fortunately, this is why I have Heat Lances, Sam. I've got, 8 Heat Lances. I've got about 5 or 6 Dark Lance shots. And then I've got the Talos, which throw Haywire, which will just do mortal wounds to the Telemons. They'll get the 4-ups. Yeah, and I think that's where the bikes have changed is that they can't just kill whatever they touch like they used to. Like they kind of got the same treatment that Incubi did, where they're very good into the right targets, but if you don't get them into the right targets, they're going to be kind of average at best. Like that's what I'm seeing with the. So I played Charles. He was my round 2 matchup at the tournament, and he had a Telemon and he had whatever the little shield dudes are. Calidus. I don't know. It's like a shield spear dreadnought. And I think I'm going to have to get rid of Kyle's faster because they have more shooting. Because, like, Charles had a melee weapon instead of one of the guns. So I think with Kyle's, I'm going to have to try to get rid of them a little quicker because the shooting, even though it's not scary, I also just don't have armor saves. So it's one of those where I've got to try to do what I can to keep that at a minimum. Um, but yeah, the I think the Heat Lancers are going to be really helpful this game, and I think my Ravager is going to do a lot of work because the Telemons aren't as dumb as they used to be. Like they're not bad, but they are. Let me pull them up because they're not as tough as I expected. Yeah, they're T10, and I kind of expected those to be like T11 or T12 when I first hit them because those were like T8 in ninth. So I was like, oh man, these things are gonna be dumb. And we was like, nah, they're T10. Yeah, they do. They throw a ton. They're T10, 12 wounds. So it's one of those like they weren't that bad to deal with. And then they have duty eternal, so they're going to subtract one from the damage characteristic of attacks. So, and then so the big thing with the bikes is I think they're just expensive, right? I don't think they're bad, but 5 of them is almost 500 points. That does seem a little pricey. They're what 90 points a model, and that's the thing with 10th edition I'm seeing is if you have the fly keyword, you're still paying that fly tax, even though fly doesn't really do anything for us right now. So one of two things really needs to happen in the next data slate is those fly units that are getting overpointed need to come down just a little bit, and even the Praetors could come down a little bit, or we just need to go back to regular fly rules, right? Because the fly keyword right now is so weird. Right. No, I think 90 points a model is way too much. And I don't know. I'll have a better idea. Like, just looking at their data sheet, it seems too much, but I'll have a better idea of what my thoughts on it are after I see them on the table. But I have to imagine they could be pointed at 70 or 75 and still be either. They might even still be a little too expensive, but I feel like 70 to 75 is probably more in the realm of what they should be. But it really boils down to the fact that just like things with the fly keyword are still getting that fly tax, even though fly kind of sucks right now. So, all right, so set our mission. So that's our deployment zone. The only objective marker that's going to be on there is this middle one right here because we drew this mission. In this mission, woo, let's zoom you in. Objective markers are not placed as shown on the deployment card drawn. Instead, you roll off at the start of the place objective marker step, and then alternate setting up objective markers, starting with the winner of the roll-off. One objective marker must be placed wholly within each deployment zone, and then the remaining go in no man's land as shown, blah, 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 blah. They must be more than 6 inches away from a battlefield edge and more than 9 inches away from all other objective markers. If that's not possible, then it's not placed. If any rules require players to set up additional objective markers during the place objective markers step, players set them up as described on that mission rule card. If any rules instruct players to remove one or more, do so. Blah, 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 blah. So we are playing this mission so that the center objective stays on the table, and then each player will have 2 objectives to place. And that all that means though is that one's going to have to go in my deployment zone and one's going to have to go somewhere in his deployment zone. And then the other 2 can go anywhere in no man's land, which is really just this big gray patch in the middle. So the objective markers that we're looking at are so the preview is going to be a little short in that regard because I don't know where the objective markers are going to be. We're probably going to do player place terrain. So literally everything is going to be thinking on the fly. You know, I will make sure I take a lot of pictures this time. I know I'm really bad about not taking pictures, but I've got reminders set on my phone to do it now so that I can show you the terrain, show you the board state in between rounds, stuff like that. It'll make my recaps a lot better. If we assume this is our terrain layout, which I know it won't be, because again, we're doing player placed. Let me pull up my little pen. Epic Pen. This is one of my favorite apps that I've downloaded for my computer. This thing is so much fun. I'm going to John Madden the shit out of this. Maybe. Where'd my Epic Pen go? All right. Let's close that. We can close that. Boop. Oh no. Well, that's okay. Let's just close out and restart it and see if that fixes it. It's not wanting to open up. If not, no big deal. There we go. Yeah, there we go. All right. Epic Pen back to school. There you go. Now you get to see that ad too. What's up? All right. So deployment zone is, gosh, that's terrible. Basically here to here. I'm so good at drawing straight lines, guys. I'm amazing. Look at that. Awesome. I'm the best. Pat myself on the back. All right. And we know one objective is here, right? We know this. And you know this, man. So knowing that we can place objectives this mission, I have no idea what Kyle's going to do, right? I really don't. Because Kyle's kind of a silly goose. If I were Kyle, I would probably, like, if I were playing this mission and I had Custodes, I would, and it's take and hold is our primary, which is just 5 points per objective controlled in your command phase, right? So you can get up to 15 points for controlling 3 objectives. If I'm Kyle, let me rephrase. If I'm playing this mission with Custodes, because again, Kyle's kind of a silly goose, so I don't know what he's going to do. I'm probably putting one of those objectives, because they have to be 9 inches away from here, and this is about 7. So I might try to sneak one here if I can, especially if I can control it by being right here. And I might try to put one maybe like either right here so I can control it from right here, or up in here, so that I can just sit in the terrain feature and control it. One of those two options, right? If that's like, this is how I'm looking at this game. And then I'm probably going to take Cleanse, and I'm probably going to take Homers. I might take Engage on all fronts, but I'm not taking behind enemy lines. I mean, first of all, I don't know that he could score it consistently with his list. Like, he doesn't have enough deep strikes and teleports to keep farming it. But he can effectively sit here, control this objective outside his deployment zone, and do cleanse, and can effectively sit here and control this objective outside his deployment zone and do cleanse. So he can cleanse 2 objectives very easily. And then that allows him to just send 1 unit up to do teleport homers. Now, obviously, this is using this terrain layout. Once we set the table, this whole concept is out the goddamn window, and that's the way it is. But I'm probably going to try to set the table so that I can do this also. So then he's just got to smack the center of the board, right? And what did I tell everybody? If you're playing Custodes, what I think the best approach is, especially if you're playing them with one of those mid-tier armies, like the bad to mid-tier, like the Sisters and the Drukaris out there, and these armies that are hovering somewhere in the like high 40s to like high 30s, right? You match the laziness. And again, I'm not using that term to put anybody down. Like what we're doing is we're scoring points without interacting, right? Well, I'm just going to do the same thing then. And that is one of the nicer things about the way the missions are set up for 10th edition is that if you want to sit in your deployment zone and score points, I can also just sit in my deployment zone and score points. And actually, we can't do that. We can't do that. Sorry. Because this one has to be in a deployment zone. So let me erase this one because I think this is the one that we get rid of. I'm glad I caught that because somebody's going to hit me up in the comments and be like, actually, Chris, you can't do that. And that's fair. You can't. So again, we maybe go and put one like back in here. We can farm this cleanse still, like we were saying, and then we can move a unit or two to the middle to cleanse and do homers, or just send one at a time and focus on getting baby cleanse and baby homers to start with and just kind of keep pushing, keep pushing. Now, I could be totally wrong. Kyle could really screw up what I think he's going to do and play tactical, or he could do something really stupid and just play like bring it down and score no points. Not that Kyle can't play the game or isn't good. It's just like sometimes I don't know what it is he's going to do. You know, he kind of like does some silly stuff. So, but again, so that's what I think you do, right? So then what I think I need to do is just match that. Okay, well, I'll set one maybe like here. And that's just so the one in my deployment zone has easy access to the center of the board. And we'll talk about why in a second. And then if this one's over here, honestly, I almost feel like I put this one over here and control it from just outside the, like right here, and then control it from just outside, like here. Or maybe like here to control it from here. Just so I can, he's going to have less units than me. Now he's going to have to decide if he wants to come out here and try and take that. And I know they've can, like the Terminators, I think can teleport once per game. And if I remember right, they can start in Deep Strike. And maybe it's not once per game. Maybe they could just keep doing it. But that's fine. Because the point is this. You know where I'm not going? I'm not going here. Except to do teleport homers. And if he does go there, because my shooting is going to be better than his, right? I can have my Ravager locking down this. Now he's gonna get to a point where if this is the way the game goes, he's gonna get to a point where that Telemon's gonna hit the middle of the table. You know it, I know it, he knows it. My goal, because I don't think I need to shift the Telemon early. What I think I need to do is try to wipe out the infantry fast so that I can force his secondary interactions onto the Telemons. If I can push those secondary objectives, again, this is assuming that he takes what I think he's going to take. If he takes cleanse and he takes homers, then I think what's going to happen is I need to wipe the infantry first, and then the bikes are just going to be a target of opportunity. If he puts them in a spot where Drazar and company can come in and clean them up, then I think that's what we do. We send Drazar and company in to clean them up. But if we could take the infantry out early and force the Telemons to have to keep coming to the middle of the board to do homers, I think that's the play. I think that's the plan. I think if he does put something back here, I just give him that little cleanse and just be done with it. Fine, you can have it. I don't care. Because what's going to happen is if you do take homers and you do lock that middle of the board up, I'm just going to punish you for it. You can get your points, but I'm going to make sure you're not having fun doing it, right? If he sends a unit of boys up to do homers, does it, they don't have anything that lets them shoot unless they're assault. Let me look. I don't think they are. Let's see. Ranged weapons. So like the bolt calivers aren't. I think the spears and the swords might be though. So they'll be able to advance and shoot, but then like they can't do it, right? Like then because you have to forfeit your shooting in order to do the action-based secondaries. So it's one of those where like if he's trickling them in one unit at a time, he'll get his points, but I'm going to be able to just wipe them one unit at a time. I can focus all my dark lances down, and then I can also use my heat guns in order to just like bounce out, throw some shots, bounce back. Because like my scourges may start off the table or on the table for this matchup. Mostly because the only thing he has that's fast are the bikes. And the scourges, yes, I have to get within his range in order to shoot them, but he doesn't have anything to give him free stratagems. Because Trajan, I don't think gives it to you, right? I didn't see that. And the bike captains don't. Yeah, Trajan doesn't. Let's see the Dawn Eagle, the Deagle. Nope, the consolidate. Yeah, so the bikes can. So he can only do it for the bikes. So again, knowing where that is, and it's not like here's 2 units of infantry that can do it. It's here's 1 unit of bikes that can do it. If it comes down to it, I can smack Overwatch with the Archon's ability and just make him pay 2 command points every time he wants to Overwatch. And I don't know that that's going to be necessary, but that's what I'm probably going to look for doing it with. Just because, again, like most of his stuff, I can outrange. And I'll have to look at the strats or whatever it is. But if those heavy bolter dudes can shoot twice, like they're just going to have to go away. Whatever I can do to limit their interaction, because they have a 36-inch range. And if they can shoot twice, even if it's just once per game, I'm not interested in having that in my life. You know, I just want to avoid him. I don't want to interact with him and then fire or focus him down with the guns. And I think that's the play. I think that's the overall plan here. And a big shout out to Charles and Ed because, man, both of those games were very educational for me. And I was immediately trying to process how do I approach this. Now, both of them played tactical, but even Ed said, hey, man, the only reason I played tactical was because, like, I just, not that you're not a good player, I just knew I had a really good matchup into Sisters, and I thought I'll give it a test run. And so it's one of those where talking to multiple Custodes players, a lot of them are playing fixed, not tactical. Obviously, we had Jimmy. I don't know if you're still out there, but you're in the league, and I saw this last round you played tactical. I didn't check your scorecard from the first round to see if you played tactical, but I'd be curious if you're still out there, what your thoughts are on it. But like I said, a lot of the people I've spoken to are fixed for Custodes, and it's a lot of just what I just said, like sit and score with as little interaction as possible and force people to come to you onto the objective because that's when they can start doing their fight first and all the other stuff. They can damage reduce and a lot of crazy stuff. Like their strats are really good. So I hope that makes sense for everybody. I'm sorry about how rough I sound. As Dan said, I sound like I got the con flu. You know, it's just a lot of hoarseness from yelling. Now, another thing, kids are back in school. Well, the boy's back in school now, and then Izzy starts next week. And as the kids start going back into school, I'm going to look to be doing maybe some more hobby streaming again. So just look forward to that. Also, just dropped a brief intro kill team video, so make sure you're checking that out. Because I'm going to start introducing more kill team also. Because what I want to try to do is start running kill team events simultaneously with 40k. Like if I get 10 40k tables, I might try to get like 6 kill team tables, or six is ambitious because that's 12 players. I might try to get 4 to 5 kill team tables in the same event, and just have them going side by side. That way we can just like try to build both communities together. So, oh, that's right, Dan. You've got Custodes also because I think you play Ed. And so Ed's list is a little bit different. And I played against a very similar because I played Ed at the tournament. Um, and the tournament list was very similar to the league list, but I think his league list had 3 tanks instead of 2. So, because I think his tournament list had 2, he dropped a tank to bring more boys. The tanks for you, Dan, are going to be rough. Like they are. They're just going to be rough. Like playing with sisters. I don't think you had a lot of Meltas, and I know like Meltas kind of feel poopy right now because the strength 9 and sisters just don't have any kind of interaction to help kind of improve that or make it feel better. But that being said, if you end up losing this round, Dan, spend the 10 victory points and try dropping like 2 retributors into rhino or immolators. Like, yeah, you're still hitting on 4s coming out of it, but re-rolling your wounds will help you out a lot. I did that at the tournament, and like I said, it wasn't perfect, but especially like I was annihilating the Custodes infantry because of it. Like I could get out, move the immolator up, move the retributors up, get them within melta range, and I could even move the immolator up, disembark the retributors, right? Get them within melta range, shoot the retributor into the boys, make sure I get my hits, and then just re-roll wounds with the retributors because of coming out of the immolators. Like they interact just like a razorback. So that was a lot of words to say something that probably could have been said in less. I hope that makes sense. That being said, hobby stream. I do have. We'll probably start. I might start Thursday. I do have some Space Marines that I'm working on. I'm not planning on playing them, but I am painting them up as White Scars. If I ever played Marines, that is the actual Legion I would play. All speed, right? It just fits with who I am and how I play. So, again, appreciate Plasma did number. Yeah, and Plasma will. Yeah. And you just all supercharge all the time, man. That's right. So, heck yeah, guys, I appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for listening to me sound like a 50-year-old emphysema smoker. Thanks for listening, honey. You guys are great. Come back again next week, okay? So, all right, guys, have a good one. Oh, not yet, because I got to turn off my pen. There we go. Later.